Hey guys, so in this video I'll go over the steps that I took to light up my Lego city for under $30. So before we get started, I just want to warn you guys that this technique does involve some soldering skills, and also if you are a kid that's looking forward to lighting up your Lego city, make sure you tell your parents before you start it, because you may burn yourself, but you want your parent there to watch you scream out in pain when you do. All jokes aside, to do this project, you're going to need to use either a soldering gun or soldering iron. I've used both and they both work great. When it comes to the soldering wire, I prefer using soldering wire that's under the diameter of 1.6 millimeters. That just makes it easier for me to actually solder the wire to the lights. And when I say wire, I'm actually talking about Cat 6 Ethernet wire. And that's because when you take it apart, you actually get 4 different pairs of wire. And those 4 different pairs mean that this 5 feet of wire is actually 20 feet. And also, Cat 6, since it's small but it's sturdy, you can shape it really well around Legos and it stays in place. And that's what makes it so good. Also, these plugs for $7 seem to work great when connecting the wires and lights through floors of the Lego modulars. And finally, this light strip I've used twice and works perfectly. So as you guys can see on my bench here, I have the Lego modular that I'm going to wire. I have dikes or strippers, which have the dikes here. I have snips, I have my solder, I have my soldering iron, and then I have my soldering gun. And I also have extra Lego pieces, so if I have to either replace some parts on here so I can maneuver some things through some certain holes, I have some extra parts where I can replace them to run the wire through the modular. Also, note that I have a wooden block to solder on. Don't ever solder on something like this or this bare like IKEA wood. Make sure you have something thick and durable like this piece of wood here, or some sort of material that you don't care for burning the top of it. Always have a plan in mind, because if you don't have a plan, then you're going to end up shorting out. So I recommend, before you solder anything, make sure that you know exactly where you're going to run the wire, because if not, you're going to mess up and it's not going to be good. Also, another thing I like to do before I decide on how many lights I need to put in one space is I put this contraption together where it's a male plug connected directly to a light, and I just plug it in to the adapter, to the USB adapter, and I just look through the windows and see where I want it. And this helped a lot when deciding on how many lights to put in. So this level I'll just put in 2. I'll put in one around there, and then the other one will go around here, because that's all that I think is necessary when looking through the windows. So as you can see, I wired this one through the front just so I could have a light out here. But it's just finding these creative ways and easy ways to wire lights. So the way I'll do this is I'll wire this guy to come out, and it'll connect to the level that'll sit here. And then the way I wired it from here is that I went through that little hole, and I'm going to wind it across here so it stays. And then it comes out the back right here, and then this is where I'm going to have my plug. Now the first thing you're going to want to do when you get your wire is you're going to want to separate it. And keep in mind, I've already know how long this wire needs to be. So then you're going to take either your dikes or strippers. You can do this with either ones, or snips or strippers, my bad. And you're going to just take a little bit off. And make sure you don't press too hard, because unless you'll cut it off. So you're trying to do it so you get that bare wire. Let's see. You see how you get that little piece of bare wire out? And you'll see why in just a moment. So do that to both sides. See? So some light strips will come like this, where it's you have this thing where it's like every other one has a light bulb, and the other ones have this centerpiece. You can just cut this centerpiece out, but when you cut it, make sure you leave enough to solder it on. So you can cut like right to the edge of here, and you see how you have enough room to solder onto the copper here. So let's do that again to this side, and then yeah, so you have enough. Make sure when you cut this, you never cut off this resistor, because if you do cut this off, then you'll blow the LED when you plug it in, which would be really bad, especially if you install it on your modular and then you find out, oh, my light doesn't work. That would suck. So I had to order some more lights, but I noticed that even though I ordered from the same place, the same product, this one came with a silicone top, but I was able to peel the silicone top off. So keep in mind that you can peel this one off. I don't know if you can peel it off of other brands, but this brand of light, I was able to peel it off. So before you start soldering, and you have to pick a certain wire for this and make it universal, either negative or positive lead. Now I usually do it in the way that my white wire will always be negative, and my colored wire, whether it's orange, brown, or blue, will always be the positive one. And that just helps me throughout my throughout wiring this thing. Keeps me from getting confused, and then keeps me from shorting out my system, because you'll blow each and every light or your house. So as you see here, I have now ran this wire. I have the female end on this end, and then I have the male end on this one. So this is what's going to plug into my quote-unquote grid underneath the city, and this is the one that's going to go and connect to the second floor. Then after you wire anything, you want to test it out. Like this one light bulb, I tested it out before I put it in here, because it would have sucked if I put it in here and everything, put all the bricks back together, and then it didn't work. So make sure you always test it out with some sort of thing that I made here, where I put a female plug onto the USB adapter, so I could just directly plug it in there and test it out. Boom, and it works. And I plugged it in here, and then I went all the way down to my USB adapter. And I just wanted it so this patio would be lit up. And that's all about that planning phase, is just knowing where you want light and where you're going to wire it. And the difficult part isn't actually putting the light there, it's getting the wire to it. So once you figure out how to get the wire to it, you're good. Also, you may ask, well, why did I add so much slack here? Well, I added slack here, and keep in mind that this one's not going to be plugging into this one, it's going to be plugging into the next level, which is this one. But that's so I can take this guy off and then set it off to the side while I unplug it from the lower floor, and then I can move it around. So these 1x2 plates seem to work great with keeping down the wire and holding it up on the bottom of the floors. And I recommend going to the local Lego store, and they usually have these small pieces on like the pick-a-brick wall. And just getting a whole, you probably don't need a whole, like a large tub. You probably just need one of the small tubs, and fill that thing up, and you should be good. I mean, I on average use about 8 of these, like 5 to 8 of these per floor. So just keep that in mind when you're going to wire. So I decided that I needed 2 LED lights for this first floor. So one thing I like to do is I like to see where I want the male end and female end for this floor and where I want them to be at. So as I can see, the plug for this floor is going to be right here, because it's going to plug into this guy. So I'm going to do it so this plugs in over here. So that means that, remember, it flips upside down like this. We flip it like that. It's going to need to plug in right here. So I'll put the first light around somewhere around here. Then I'll wire it over here to the second light, and then I'll most likely put the plug for the next floor up this staircase. And it's just, again, that planning, and once you have that plan down, you can cut to the wire to what you need, and then after that, you're good to basically wire the lights. As you guys can see, I wired the female plug up here through the staircase, and then here is what the bottom looks like. And as you can see, I use those 1x2s to basically keep the wires in there. And I did test this out, the lights do work. And it'll sit like right here. It'll sit right here. As you guys can see, those two wires will go together. Then those two will go together. I don't know if you can see that wire. There it goes. Those two will go together right there when it comes down right here. So I'm about to test out the 2 stories here. So as you guys can see, it looks pretty good. Also, I forgot to mention earlier, these do have the 3M sticky backs on here. I don't usually do it, but I did use it on the one down there. And that is another thing to keep in mind, but I find just using the bricks a lot easier. As you guys can see, I've now wired the bottom of the 3rd level to light up the 2nd level. So here's it's in the vet's office right here, and then come here, this is a lobby, and then this will plug into this guy over here. And if we flip this guy over, this is going to plug into the roof to light up the 3rd story. So I finished wiring it all, so I'm going to plug it in real quick. Uh-oh. I'm just kidding. There it is. I finished wiring it. So I did the roof the same way I wired the bottom of this one. There's 3, 3, 3 on the first. But as you can see, it's pretty cool because now you can see the inside of the building. And that's basically the whole reason why I did it, is just so you can look on the inside without having to take it apart while it's sitting in its display or city. So I'll put it in the city and then we'll check it out. So the way I power my city is through this one USB bank, which plugs into this USB cable that goes to the bottom of my the piece of plywood that the city sits on. And I referenced this earlier as a grid that runs through my city, because this one cable connects to one of the Ethernet cables, which runs through the city, and off that Ethernet cable I soldered on plugs every base plate length, if that makes sense. So I think it's like every 12 or 10 or 12 inches, and that way I could just plug the modulars into those plugs and light up my entire city. And it also hid them, so I wouldn't be able, I couldn't see it. Hey guys, thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned from it. In the end, it only cost me around $35 because I only had to buy 2 light strips and 2 30 pairs of lights. If you're wondering how many lights you're going to need, each light strip comes, or at least the ones I bought, comes with around 60 LEDs. Each 3-story modular takes around 9 lights, while the 2-story ones only take around 6. The 3-story modulars take 4 pairs of plugs, and the 2 stories take 3 pairs of plugs. So, and that's including the ones that go into the grid. So I hope you weren't confused at all during this video. If you do, leave me a question in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope you like looking at my city at night. Makes me proud looking at it. So I wish you the very best of days.